All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and students. My name is Raymond Lowery, and I work as school principal at Global Paradigm School in New Cairo. And I want to thank you for giving me a few moments to talk to you about your school, or about our school and your kids' education. I'm certain that you are here because you want the very best educational experience for your children, and I have no doubt, and I'm very certain that all the schools that are represented here have that same interest. I think the first question that we all might want to ask as we think about what schools we want is, what do we envision for our child's education? What do we envision for their future? Like Alice in Wonderland, you know, the famous character from Lewis Carroll's book, Alice in Wonderland, she asked the question, where should I go? And of course, the famous reply given by that wily cat, the Cheshire cat, was, well, that depends entirely on where you want to end up. Now, what we envision for our child's future when they go through the stages of their life. We might find that when they're in high school, it's a very different world than it is when they're in kindergarten. Or when they are, in college, or in their careers, or when they become parents themselves. What we hope to avoid, I would hope, is that when we ponder this question, we do not, as Marshall McLuhan, the famous media philosopher, said, we don't see that future through a rearview mirror. In other words, we don't look at our future like we do in a car mirror and see what we think is the future, and it's really the past. We know from the study of history that the world has gone through a number of learning ages or paradigms. There was the age of agriculture, where we had farm workers. So the age of industrial age with factory workers. And of course the information age, right, with knowledge workers. I'm having a little trouble with the paper up here. It's starting to fall out. But because of the rapid increase, the very rapid increase in the amount of information that's being produced, it's changing the world and the way in which our kids are going to learn. If you see, there's a vast amount of information that's coming forth. Consider a person reading the New York Times for 1 week in today's world is exposed to more information than a person in the 18th century saw in a lifetime. In fact, just last year, there were 4 exabytes. That's 4 times 10 to the 18th power of information was produced. That's as much information that was produced since the pyramids were built up until last year. So the world is saturated with the amount with information. Now, it's not just the total amount of information that's being produced, it's the systems that are being produced as well. The way in which information is disseminated. Radio took 38 years to get 50 million users. TV only 13 years. The internet 4, iPods 3, and Facebook, which if it were considered a country, would be the 3rd largest country behind China and India. It only took 2 years. The world is becoming what Marshall McLuhan, to quote him again, a global village. If we consider it's the speed in which this information is happening. In 1984, there was only 1,000 internet devices. In the year 2008, there was 1 billion. In 2012, there were more than 6 billion. Almost 1 for every person on Earth. The rate, too, just think about this. 6 years ago, there were 2.7 billion searches on Google. And last year, there were 31 million. So the amount of information that's going out and the amount of the speed and the amount of information that our students must know is increasing exponentially. This is going to require a different type of mindset and a different type of student. And the world is becoming a lot more competitive. You know that China has more honor students than the U.S. and Egypt combined have people. So that means there's going to be a lot of international competition there. In the year this past year, there's going to be a computer that will be built that will be the equivalent of a human mind. By the time your students are in the prime of their life, a $1,000 computer will be built that will be the equivalent of all the world's minds. Okay, so if we are in this age of a conceptual age where we're no longer just dealing with amounts of information, what will our students have to learn? Well, Daniel Pink considers that in the age of the conceptual age, our students will have to be either high context, or excuse me, high concept and high touch. They need to be able to detect patterns, to create artistic information. They have to have the ability to empathize, to be able to understand the subtleties of human nature, and they have to find joy in one's self and others. Mr. Rocky, come here for a second. I'm going to get this is one of our students. I'm going to get him to help me. I got papers falling all over the place, so it's kind of hard to keep track of my speech. Here, I want you to help turn these. Stand over here. All right. All right. What want you to do? Turn this. Okay, so if our students are going to have to prepare themselves for a different type of learning, it's not just a matter of filling up their heads with knowledge or facts or figures. It's a matter of having them work at a high level of blooms, at the creation level, the evaluation level, and also to be a person that can detect patterns and see relationships between seemingly unknown facts. Besides that, our students are going to have to be ones that are going to be community-minded. Now, if I were looking at a school and I was trying to decide if it was the right place for my son or daughter, I would look at the mission statement. And I know that other schools share their mission statements with you. So, if you look at ours, I have a summary of ours right here, and I've italicized some of the highlights of it. To begin with, we believe that we should create a caring and compassionate culture in our school, and that we're able to provide adaptable and resilient students that then can become adaptable and resilient citizens once they graduate. Our teachers and our classrooms are filled with learner-centered, research-based strategies, and we promote the idea that students should develop critical thinking and strategic learning habits so that they can be prepared for the future that they face. We stress problem solving, and we stress group and collaborative learning. The last thing that our mission statement looks for is to develop a desire to have a lifelong desire for learning. This is important because we know that students that are in the kindergarten now may see as many as 14 different career changes by the time they're 38. In fact, if you look at the information, a student that's entering a four-year technical school today may see that by the time they're a junior, that information in their first 2 years is obsolete. Okay. We also know that education, and this is what we believe, education is just not a filling of a bucket, but it's a lighting of a fire. We know that on our campus, we strive to build relationships with our kids. We have character building classes, and we teach our teachers to have relationship building strategies in their classroom management. Ruby Payne, with this quote up here, is one of the leading educators in the United States, and she believes, as I do, that no significant learning occurs without a significant relationship. In fact, I found as an educator of more than 35 years that kids really don't care what you know until they know that you care. Now, our relationships are built on our core values, all right? And we believe that each of our teachers, each of our classrooms should elicit in our students these values: honesty, honor, respect, responsibility, tolerance, and commitment. Now, the one thing I've always tell teachers all the time is kids may not remember what you taught them, but they'll certainly remember how you treated them. And you probably can remember teachers that made you feel good about yourself and about your life, all right? So, where do we start, or what do we envision for our students besides coming out with the learning strategies to be able to prepare themselves for the future? Well, what I envision and what our staff envisions is to try to imbue in our students a sense of vision, a self-vision. And of course, I like to quote Gandhi, which he says, you need to be the change that you want to see in the world. Now, I know that all our students can't be Gandhi or Nelson Mandela or Martin Luther King, but we can instill each student, and what we strive to do is instill in each student the desire to be the difference that makes the difference. And if they do that, if we strive to do that, then what we're doing is we're seeing that they take responsibility, and they are the difference that makes a difference in their own lives. They take responsibility for making sure that they can be the agent of change in their life. That they can be the difference that makes a difference in someone else's life. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a member of their community or their school. They can also be the difference that makes a difference in their school itself or their community by giving of others. They don't have to be Gandhi, but they could help in the food bank down the street, or they can help with setting up funds for orphanages, or giving to those less fortunate. And of course, we want our students to try to think about their lives and how they can impact on a more global level, that they can be the difference that makes a difference in their country, and of course in the world. So, at Global Paradigm, what we strive to do is prepare our kids for that conceptual age which we know is coming. All right? We try to look forward in our instructional strategies, in the types of work that we give, so we have meaningful relationships and we have meaningful work for our kids. Because if we can instill in them that belief in themselves that they can be an agent of change in their own life, then, as this quote says, what lies behind us and what lies in front of us matters very little when compared to what lies within. And that's what we're striving for at Global Paradigm. Create strategies for their thinking and also create integrity within their character.